So there's something that I dreamt about for 2 years, and fortunately, due to a team of interns from UB that I had the fine relationship with over the summer, the dream has come to manifest. The Small Business Green Initiative. So I do corporate sustainability with some of my work, but there's no one in the community that really is helping small businesses build bridges and make inroads to authentic sustainability for themselves, okay? So that's what I'm claiming to try to do, okay? So these are some of the things that we'll talk about in the brief time that I'm here. So what I really want you to notice is the intern component. What I discovered 3 years ago, that it was, as a very, very small business, it wasn't until I discovered the value of tapping the very rich bed of interns that we have here in Western New York with 19 institutions of higher learning. Any small business that isn't drawing interns into their relationship, and I'm not talking about running copies and making coffee. I'm talking about helping them co-create very, very powerful pieces of your business that you don't have the time or the bandwidth to create, because they bring a tremendous amount of bandwidth to a small business. I invite you to do that. How many small businesses, how many people are associated with a small business here in the room? All right, and how many of you have an authentic relationship with interns? Hands, keep them up, keep them up. So about a third of you are working with interns, and I sure hope that changes possibly as a result of this. So here are some of the companies that we've worked with in the past. Some of them are logos that you recognize. Our newest client is the Buffalo Zoo. So core values for sustainable solutions are these. We Googled a list of about 212, and we selected these to represent our authentic relationship that we work when we work with clients in our community. Our mission is a triple mission to discover useful ways to save money, because we believe and we know that when you mimic nature, when you practice biomimicry, you actually are operating as efficiently as you possibly can with very little waste, and that's one of the principles that we operate from. You gain competitive advantage through sound, sustainable practices, and you embed your brand as a good neighbor. Because what we find is that one of the lowest pieces of hanging fruit for small businesses is they can become the authentic good neighbor in their community. They can build social capital that brings their customers and clients back in the door. That costs very little money. That is not an investment in high-tech solar panels, PV, wind turbines, or expensive heating systems and cooling systems, which all may someday touch your work, but there's ways to invest in sustainable practices that are maybe entry points. So this is a definition that I suspect all of the earth nerds in this room, and I call myself affectionately an earth nerd, are very familiar with. Sustainable development being that commitment to meet the need of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet its needs. Are any of us pulling it off? No. Our distant ancestors were able to do this. But for many, many, many generations, we've lost touch with our capacity to really authentically pull this off. But we have to return to a path working towards this, okay? So a question that I would ask you to think about, what does sustainability mean to you in your business? I suspect many of the people in this room have addressed this question themselves. And what would you anticipate as being one of the biggest challenges of moving towards more sustainability? Because it isn't until you address that difficult question that you move past it. So you can't ignore this one. This is one that we invite our clients to address. So I think you know this stuff, right? What are the real economic drivers for green business? Well, worldwide investment in clean energy technologies alone, just energy alone, $7 trillion through 2030. There's metrics all over the place. You don't have to look hard. That'll show you you're in a domain of energetic, viable economic gain by addressing sustainability. Okay, so we have a model called the Small Business Green Initiative, and these are the components of the model that we'll go back to several times. We address these components with the small businesses we're currently reaching out to. And if any of this appeals to you as a small business owner, please let me know, because this Thursday is our last free intro session. We have a 90-minute free intro session at Ashker's Cafe from 9 to 10:30, where you'll get some fine food and beverages, and you'll get a chance to hear more details on this opportunity. If you can't make that, please let me know before you depart today. So creative problem solving, CPS. How many of you really have heard of the International Center for Studies in Creativity? The International Center. How many of you have heard of it and maybe visited it? Raise your hand, please. Look around the room, guys. Look around the room. Come on, turn your heads. Look around the room. There's 2 hands up. Jeff, where is it?
I don't know where it is, but I know that you were running it.
Oh, it's in Buffalo. It's in Buffalo at Buffalo State, and people fly from all over the world to get their master's degrees in creative thinking. Do we know it? No. It's one of the diamonds in our rough that is very well kept. 15 years prior to my retirement from teaching, I ran into these people and I started using their creative principles in my teaching, and remarkable things happened. Wind turbines showed up on the roof of my school, solar panels, an aquatic classroom was built in an outdoor courtyard. And it wasn't because I had magic, and it wasn't because I was a great person. I started using a research-based innovation model that was born right here in Buffalo that very few of us tap, and the world taps it. There's only 2 centers in the world that compete for the title of International Centers for Studies in Creativity, and one of them has been right here in Buffalo. So what we do, we train our clients in the principles of creative thinking. Okay? Economic value. So you don't have to look hard. It's there. Some of you know it well. Here's what the consumers are telling us. Here is evidence from green businesses, and I only captured 2 or 3 of them in this presentation, that lets you know you are about a noble cause and you are about an economically viable cause. All right? So look at the directions of the arrows, look at the labels on the arrows. Okay, 76% of green business owners strongly agreed that their green products and services are profitable. I have the sources of all this information if you want to be able to get the PDF, and this happened to come from the Big Green Sustainability Report, okay? But I have all these if you want the market research on where we got this information, okay? And workforce engagement. So if there's 2 or more of you at your workplace, and you engage them in synergistic creative thinking, there is no limit to what you can gain from that synergistic relationship. Mathematics has this thing called an exponential curve, and what we do is when we study 2 or more creative individuals in sustained relationships, if you track the number of creative ideas that come from them, if in fact they're operating using creative principles as part of their conversation, the number of ideas follows an exponential trend. Now, what you do to capture those ideas is part of the theory of creative thinking. It's called convergence or convergent thinking, okay? So one of the questions I would ask you is, what if all of the employees at your workplace, all the stakeholders associated with your work, were authentically invited and trained in the principles of creative thinking? What would stop you? What would stop you from achieving your goals? Authentically, very little would stop you because you are really tapping all the potential cylinders of your engine. Okay, so competitive difference. So stakeholders, not shareholders. Big corporations really have to measure a lot by share value, but you are a small business. So stakeholder satisfaction is what you're seeking. So check what we're being told, okay? Customers are coming back in your door because you have shown them that your service, your product, the way you conduct business is authentically green. It's sustainable. You're not yet operating fully sustainably. You're not yet there, but they're convinced you're on the path. That's what they need to know, that you're on the path. There's trustworthy and there's integrity. So this change agent thing, this change leader thing, to be the change we wish in the world, okay? How do we pull that off? There are 5 core principles that we have found that an individual and an organization wants to assess. You want to assess what's your current capacity in these 5 core competencies, and then you want to amp up your capacity in those 5 domains. It's not 500 domains. We found the research shows 5 domains, okay? So those businesses that participate in the SBGI, the Small Business Green Initiative, will increase their amperage and understanding of their capacity in those 5 domains. And there's an instrument that we've created called the Change Leader Inventory, the last line, the CLI, that quantitatively helps you assess that. So this thing called SBGI certification. So how many of you have climbed Mount Everest? How many of you have climbed any kind of a peak ever? All right, we're seeing about a third of you have climbed a peak, okay? It's rare that you went to the peak immediately, unless it was more of like a rounded mountain. There's base camps, you have to acclimatize at certain altitudes, okay? SBGI certification is meant to be one of your first base camps on your path to sustainability. It's not LEED certification, it's not ISO 14000 certification, it's not Benefit Corporation certification, which, by the way, we now have someone in the community that's going to work with small businesses working towards that. We just found this out last night. B corporations. If you don't know what a B corporation is, you may want to Google it. SBGI certification is to do just that. It's to be able to prove to you and the world and your local community that you're on the path. Your customers, your clients, your vendors, your suppliers will know that you are authentically on the path because you had to prove it to someone who had the competency to assess it. And being one of the 2 B corporations in Western New York, Sustainable Earth Solutions, is in a position where we can authentically assess your capacity of sustainability. We have the horsepower to authentically do that. Okay? So what might you be considering as projects? Any of these. And any number of these. I only made a small list to tease you a bit. Okay? So there's no limit to what you can address. You would come away from the SBGI having developed a very clear plan with metrics tied to it. We would be in relationship with you for 9 months. Within 9 months, you'd have to shoot us back proof that you're alive and well, that you've got some metrics tied to it, that you had a baseline on the beginning. 9 months later, here is where you are. When you jump through the hoops that we ask you to jump through, we would then award you SBGI certification. Several years later, we would build into it a request for renewal so that it isn't just something that you did once. We'd want it to be seen in this community as a dynamic process. So I can only offer the package one time at this price. I can't sustain this price. So if you want in, and this is something that you'd like to do, this would be the time to jump because this is the time where the price will be low. Why is it this low? Because I'm trying to build a core of followers and change agents in our community. And I need creative, energetic people to give it a try. So I want to thank you for this opportunity to stand in front of you. And at this moment, I'm going to turn it over to our next very fine guest speaker.